Hello, storygoers, and welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Cartridge, the video game storytelling podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Eric,
And I'm your co-host, Ryan.
and Ryan. I had a whole thing planned for this, and I'm blanking. Oh man, it's been too long. It's been so long.
Yeah.
It's been too long. It sucks because life's hard sometimes, and
Yeah.
it takes us away from the things we want to do, which is talk about video games.
Yeah.
But we're here now. We're back. You're in your beautiful house.
I'm in a beautiful new home, yes, and
Yes.
in an office that is in a good enough place to record and to hang out and to do stuff in.
It's probably you don't have to share a wall with anyone.
No, I
Isn't it
don't.
nice? I imagine.
It's very nice. I mean, yesterday we were, we got home from work. We've been carpooling when we can, just because,
Yeah.
driving. We got home from work and we were had some dinner and we were playing some Stardew and we were like talking about something. For some reason, we started playing some music, and I just had this like thought of like I don't have to unless this is so loud that it's hurting somebody. I don't have to think about this at all. I can just play this music as loud as I desire. And as long as it's not if it's too loud for the neighbors, then it's far too loud for me because I can't hang with very loud music. So, but yeah, it was just a very nice thought of I don't have to really think about this at all because this is my space and I don't have to it impacts nobody else.
That is so nice.
Which is just very nice, very nice. And then I was the other side of that is this morning I was just saying that our gutters are leaking and that's going to be thousands of dollars. So two sides of the coin.
Are gutters that much? Do you think they're that much?
If you do a whole house of gutters, it could be up to $5,000 to do your whole
What?
get your whole house and guttered up, depending on your square footage of your home. Yeah.
Oh my god, I had no
'Cause
idea.
Labor, installation, and materials. Yeah, especially if you do gutter guards or if you install heaters in them so that you don't get ice dams and all the other stuff that we have to deal with up here in Maine. So yes, that is not a fun thing to be thinking about, but it is what happens.
I did not know that. That's pretty wild to think about, actually. That sucks.
Yeah, that's okay.
But how are you? And what have you been playing?
Overall, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a while. So I can't remember what was going on the last time we recorded because
Yeah, it was April.
so much
we did
of
DLC
life
in
has
April.
changed
Yeah.
since then. But overall, I'm doing pretty good. We moved to a new home. We're hanging out here. A ton of games have come out that I really want to play that I haven't played yet. But overall, doing pretty good. What I've been playing not a lot these past few weeks with the move and with everything going on. I have been working my way through Blueprints. It's so hard with a game like Blueprints because there are puzzles in that game that I will never solve because I'm not smart enough and I don't have the time and energy.
Ryan,
Eric,
you can do it.
there's puzzles in that game that can take hundreds of hours and a lot of RNG.
I bet. Yeah, I couldn't do it either. So.
I probably if I had the dedication and time. There's some really complex high level puzzles in that game. So it's this. I'm in this place for this game where I've rolled credits.
Nice.
I've rolled
Round of
credits.
applause, please.
Yeah, thank
Story
you.
yours, please.
But
You're in the car with
that's
your family, just applause. Don't tell them why.
Thank you. That's maybe you're at the 50% point of the amount of puzzles in the game when you roll
What?
credits.
50%?
So there's there's a bunch of other stuff that I have to do and should do and will do.
Whoa.
And it's one of those games where I could grind it out and slowly make my way there, or I could get really lucky. And it's just I'm at this weird place where I don't know if I want to stop and just walk away and go play probably Clair Obscura next.
Yes, join us, Ryan. Come on the expedition.
Or not. I also downloaded Oblivion, but I'm excited to play Oblivion, but I think that'll still be there. That excitement will still be there after.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm at that place in Blueprints, and then we moved into this home, and one of the first things we had planned to do when we moved in is to start a new Stardew save, because it is a very comforting, cozy thing that me and my wife do together. And there's a bunch of mods out there, and some of the mods double the size of the game. Of this content that you can access in the game. So we've been doing an initial modded run through of Stardew Valley Expanded, which is one of many expanded mods out there, and that's been very, very fun. And then you're going to talk about this as well. As you just reminded me when you put it on your list.
I forgot, yeah.
Eric, we've been playing through some Borderlands, but we can talk more about that in a little bit if you'd like, or now. Doesn't matter to me. But
up to
Eric,
you.
Yeah, I'll let you jump in because this is
Okay.
a new experience for you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because I've played through this. We're playing through the pre-sequel. I've played through the pre-sequel, and this is your first time, so I'd love to hear more of your thoughts. But Eric, how are you, and what have you been playing?
Good. I am also changing things in life and trying to. I'm unfortunately, it still breaks my heart to say it out loud. It hurts me because I hate it. But then it comes with good things too, and it's hard to be mindful of that. But moving out of state, out of Maine, which is like a huge bummer. But I'm trying to make it a positive and like, you know, I'm gonna try to be more present to play games together whenever you're free and willing and able, and still doing tales and stuff. And so I'm trying to find the good in it because we're potentially going to buy a home, which is really cool. We actually have an inspection. I forgot to tell you this. We're having an inspection like right now, actually.
Wow, that's really exciting.
It's happening currently. We'll hear the news at 1:00. So I'm very anxious because this is a house that's built in like the 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little scary, but it looks really well done. It could have been a funeral home. We just found out this morning. Cool. That's a little scary. I had to stage that place up. Not that I believe in it, but I told my wife, I was like, there's no way we're going to be the next season of American Horror Story. I refuse. Sure. So whether I believe it or not, we're still staging that thing. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not going to deal it. As for what I've been playing, yes, we've been playing Borderlands, the pre-sequel. I had never, thinking back on it, after we played we've had a couple sessions playing through. I don't think I played it originally because I just didn't consider it like a canon thing, even though it is canon, obviously. I think it was a different studio making it, and I think I had judged it prematurely, as I should not have done. Having played it now, I like what they were doing with the setting just being on the moon. It's such a different kind of, not a different feel, it's very similar, obviously. It's still Borderlands, but it's still very space, very moon inspired, right? And I think this adds a fun little mechanic to the traversal and the combat system, which I think is really fun. And it still has the fun humor. I'm really curious at how they handle Jack as a character. We've kind of seen him a lot being this kind of like bumbling idiot character trope, which is surprising. Given what we see in Borderlands 2, and how cool of a bad guy he is in that game. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens with that. I have told other friends that were playing it outside of our friend group circle, and everyone is like, "Oh, Athena is the coolest character, right?" I was like, "Yeah, my friend's playing Athena. I'm playing Nisha," and they're like, "Oh yeah, Nisha's cool too, but Athena has the shield. She's so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, she's super cool." You know? You pick the wrong character, and everyone judges you a little bit for it. Yeah. But I'm happy you get to try, because I don't think you said you didn't try.
No,
Athena
I've played
before.
through as Nisha. I've played through as Jack. I think I've played through as Claptrap Elite, or Frag Trap, I think might be their name. Partially through, which they're all very fun. They're all fun characters.
Yeah, I think it's very. I don't know. It's just very Gearbox.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I don't know if anyone can hear my Alexa right now. It's telling me to do laundry and take vitamin D. So if you hear that, that's a reminder for you as well. Go do your laundry after you listen to this episode. Get some vitamin D in you.
Yeah.
'Cause, man, it's been dark and stormy all week here in Maine, at least. It's been a bummer. Sure. So yeah. Speaking of dark and gloomy, but in a good way, Ryan, I cannot tell you. You know that person that won't shut up about one thing? And it's like low key, they're not telling you to do it, but they're low key like trying to get you to do, like to watch the thing or do the thing that they're talking about all the time. I'm going to be that person, Ryan, for you and everyone who listens to this. I cannot stop. I'm clapping my hands a lot because I'm just so like, I don't know if
I'm so excited.
I cannot tell you how much I love Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It is, without a doubt, my game of the year, maybe game of the last 5 years.
Wow.
Like, it is so much fun when I parry consistently. I feel like a god. Like, I feel so good. And it makes you feel so powerful. In the way, for a game that is $50, they have done, Sandfall Interactive, I think is the developer. They have done an amazing job with everything in that game. I'm not saying it's going to be I'm not saying it's perfect either. It definitely has its little bugs in there. Like, I've been stuck at times and my character just cannot get out of a corner and I have to restart my save, but it's not a huge deal. But from the story to the music to the combat, it's just everything is so great because it does all the things I talk about on this show, at least story wise. It doesn't hold your hand. There's so many mysteries, so many investments that you have. I don't even know why I care for these characters. I didn't, at least at first, but you just grow to care about these people, and they feel so weird and mysterious, but they feel so real at the same time. It's so, I don't know. It's like a wild ride, and just knowing too, from what I've read about the studio, these are like or I think the director, at least, maybe there's others, but the director was an ex Ubisoft employee that was bored developing at Ubisoft, so left there, started like I think a small group of developers, I forget the number off the top of my head, found their music composer off SoundCloud, found their writer off Reddit, and I'm listening to the soundtrack on Spotify as I walk my dog. Like, I've never listened to so much French music in my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy. So I don't know. It's just so much fun. I think, Ryan, what you'll love about this game, there's this system, not to get too far into it, it's a system, they're called Pictos and Lumina. And Pictos are equipable abilities. When you win 4 engagements, 4 battles with these Pictos, I think I get these straight in my head, equipped on a character, they become Luminas, which means that you can now equip them as like a passive ability on a character.
Ooh, cool.
Though you have a certain number of points that gradually build over time as you put more into a character, so you can equip more Luminas, if that makes sense. So like for like who's a character I'm trying to think of? So like one of my characters, who's like kind of the mage of the group, she like has an AP, because every action has an AP point towards it. She has an automatic extra AP in the beginning of a battle, and she starts the battle no matter what. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, and then like one of them, when she sets a person on fire, her free shot with her rapier can burn a character, and then from that burn, she can attack and go into a different stance that doubles her attack power.
Cool. So you can like make these really fun.
Each character has their own system. So like there's a character named Mael, who she has 3 stances. There's offensive, defensive, and what's it called? I see it all the time, and now I can't think of what it's called. I sound like a poser. It's like victorious, or it's something with a V. I just know it's purple. I just know the look of it.
The purple one.
The purple one. Each stance is something different. One, the magician, she has stains. So the stains are different attributes of the magic that she uses. And so, say, for example, I always start the battle with lightning. So I do this lightning move that gives me 2 lightning stains. And then from there, in the next turn, if I have enough AP, if I use an earth move, an earth-based attack, it'll take those lightning stains and amplify the attack power of her earth move.
That's very cool.
That makes sense. It is so much fun. The characters are fun. It's very mysterious. It's really dark, and then it's really beautiful. Yeah. The whole world is just like crazy awesome. I'm like potentially at the end, but I feel like there's probably gonna be another twist, because this game is so much fun. It just pulls the rug out from under you at a moment you think that you know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it's just a good time. I wouldn't even say it's a negative, but the thing that I don't think is even worth being in the game personally for me is like, for a game like this that just is so gripping and so there's so many like silly costumes and hairstyles that just are not like, I mean, it's more for fun, obviously, and I get that, but like I've seen some people react to different scenes in that game where their characters are looking so goofy and dumb, and it just takes all the air out of that scene. That I think it should have been something that probably would have been better, game plus,
right? Sure.
So
yes,
but that's it. And also there's one place, if you play this game, you know what it is, where you have to ascend. I'm gonna try to keep it very vague. You're on a beach and you have to ascend, and kind of like this, like, what's it called? Like almost like a wipeout scenario. You're going up things, and it's impossible because the UI in the game it makes it really difficult. So I thought you were assuming. That was funny. So yeah, anyway, great game. I highly, highly, highly recommend it for anyone that wants to play. It's what Final Fantasy VII Remake probably should have been. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's like the best Final Fantasy game I've ever played. It's not Final Fantasy at all. You know what I mean? So it's very, very, very good.
Yeah.
Um,
And
the story
wild
going-
that
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
I was sorry, and wild that it feels like this game is made by like a fairly small studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if like it. I hope I like the games industry is a huge mess right now because it takes so long and is so expensive to make games, and you have this like maybe 30 plus some outsourcing team who spent 5 years and made this like really incredible game. I hope that the technology of Unreal 5 or whatever else it is continues to help make games like this happen so that we can have more of these experiences without like relying on a big studio to take 20 years and that it like is such a mess.
Yeah, I think it really is. I was reading something, or I saw the headline to something I haven't read it yet. I think it was on IGN, talking about with the rise of $80 games coming in the very near future, games like Clair Obscur or even I think it was Mafia, the newest Mafia game, both are $50 and both are apparently amazing experiences. So I know Clair Obscur is. I guess this Mafia game is too. Yeah. I think it's like a testament that like if your game is approachable towards a wider audience, financially speaking, it might be more successful than like a game that's gonna be $80 at minimum. Yeah, which is like I don't know. That's a lot to ask of people, and I think also, and not to get into the weeds of this. Obviously, I'm not by any means an expert. I know it's probably not the company's desire to push it to 80 right now with everything. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's probably there's other things happening in the world, obviously, that have pushed that to where it's going that trend.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to know that smaller studios can be successful and win and do well.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I recommend it. I think you should get it.
Yeah.
And you do thank me later. I'm just kidding. Yeah. We can talk all about the cool things that you can do. You'll probably have such awesome structures to your characters if they're Pictos and Luminas, and I'm over here just like, that does a lot of damage, I'll do this one. You know what I mean? Like I sure. That's how I usually go. It's like, I can do more damage with this, I'll do that. That sounds more fun.
Yeah.
But Storygoers, I hope you're doing well, that you're happy and healthy, doing all the good things. We hope you enjoyed our last episode of our April DLC because we fell off because of all the life stuff. So sorry about that. But hopefully everything's going well with that. I mean, we talked about the Switch 2. All the emails, all the pre-orders happened by now, and also Nintendo sent out their emails. I never got one. Womp womp. But you know what?
Wild.
You know what? It is what it is.
Did you get a Switch 1 email? Did we have a conversation about this before?
No, but I know because I found my Switch at a Target.
Right.
One morning that I never thought I'd find it. I think didn't. Oh yeah, PlayStation sent out emails. Yeah. Didn't you get a Switch email though?
I don't know if I got a Switch email or not. I never bought the Wii U, but I don't know. Maybe I got a Switch email. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I definitely got the. I remember you telling me that PlayStation had sent you an email.
Yes, I remember getting the PlayStation email. Yes.
I remember my wife and I we're just hunting.
Yeah.
For the PS, she wanted to get me one for Christmas, and it was hard on her own. And I guessed what she was doing. She was like, "All right, you can just help me then." So we were just doing it together. It was kind of like a fun activity, couple activity to do together. Yeah. But yeah. I think it's nice that companies are doing this and they're trying their best to stop resellers from doing their thing. But yeah, I don't know. What can you do? We'll see. Mm-hmm. I think I'll get the Switch 2 eventually, but man, I'm just not super hyped on it yet to want to do it. But we'll see. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can send us all your thoughts, feelings, and perspectives to talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All the E's are 3s. You can also find us on our social media and also answer the poll questions down below, and we'll read all those in a future episode. It's been crazy, so I have not gotten together all the things, so I will be skipping that today, unfortunately. Sorry, but we'll get back to it soon. Anyway, today, Ryan, we have a really fun idea for our DLC, and would you like to intro it for all the storygoers?
Sure. So we're gonna we've done a lot of stories here at Tales, as you guys are all aware, as you've listened to every single one of them multiple times, I'm sure.
So many.
And so we kind of wanted to reflect on some of the stories we've covered and talk about things that we like personally have like taken away from them, or those experiences, or like lessons we've learned from those experiences and those stories. As that is not always the goal of a story, to pass on a lesson or a narrative, but I think no matter what, we as humans take things away from every story that we hear, whether it's intended or not. It doesn't always matter. So we decided to take some time to just talk about some of the games we've played and what we've taken away from, or what we thought was really interesting or great about those stories that we wanted to kind of talk through and share, just to kind of show where what our perspective is and what we've taken away from these stories.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. Yeah, I think every medium has an effective way of connecting with their audience and teaching them a lesson, whether it was intentional or not. And I think that video games are a fantastic medium to do this as well. Maybe arguably even more so than I think other maybe forms of media, because you are literally playing as these people having to make these choices, whether it's a choice that you can actively make or a choice that you have to go along with. You can kind of really like live through this character and connect with them in a way that I think that other forms of media just can't do. So books suck.
Yeah.
I like books. We're just actively bashing books. We're telling podcasts, and we're just bashing books. But no, I think again, games are a great way to kind of learn about ourselves and about the world around us and what we can do to improve ourselves or not do something to keep ourselves happy. You know what I mean? Like, don't go on a path of revenge. It's just gonna make you sad.
Yeah.
You'll lose everything.
Yeah.
But so we have a list of we both brought 4 games to the table. We'll see if we get through all 4 or not. Because we'll probably be talking so much about these games. We'll see. No pressure. And these are all games that we have covered on the show. So spoiler alert, in case you have not listened to these episodes of these games or you have not played them and want to in the future. These are all games that have been out for quite a while. I think that, they are games that you probably have played if you're an active gamer. Active gamer? Did that sound stupid?
Gamer.
You're an active gamer, and then like the one in it. Oh, I'm an inactive gamer right now. I can't listen to the podcast. They turn it off. But if you don't want to listen to any of these, we'll say the games first. And if you don't want to hear what happens, because we're going to spoil them, then please skip ahead. So, Ryan, do you want to start us off? Your list just looks so good.
Thanks. Should I list all of my games? Do you want to do just say the name before we dive in? What do you think?
I think just say the name before we dive in.
Okay. I think I'm just start from the top and go down. There's probably a better way somebody could organize this order to have it be better, but this is the order.
I like it. I think it's like a sandwich almost in a way.
It is like a sandwich.
Outside, the dark, sad inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I'll start right at the top. The first one I chose was A Short Hike, which if you haven't played, is a game from probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. It might even be the newest game on this list.
It actually might be. I thought so too. I was gonna say that. And I was like, no, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it might be. A game from 5 or 6 years ago. A story about a bird who has a voice and can speak and talk in a world of talking, speaking animals, and who's kind of going through something, feeling sad about something, and they go on a little hike in the woods. And that during that hike, they meet people and they talk to other creatures and they help them or just talk to them. And throughout that experience, they're working through that thing that they're working through. And then at the very end, you get to the very top of the thing that they're trying to do. They finally hike that mountain they were hiking and have this really beautiful revelation about taking time for themselves and slowing down. And it's okay to feel things that you're feeling. And a really beautiful, it's just such a beautiful story in this very cutesy package. And I think what I love so much about that game is from start to finish, it is just fairly low key. Very slow. There's no pressure to rush. There's never any fail states really, and it's really just have a really wonderful time going on this hike and meeting a bunch of people who may or may not need help, and the people who don't need help are just cheering you on and saying good luck or saying hello, which if you're somebody who goes out and hikes in the world, that that happens from time to time, and it's such a beautiful experience, and I think such a strange way to explore that idea of like going outside and going in the world and just like clear your thoughts and going out and be in a place. Playing that in a video game to help like connect that is like such a weird thing. But for me, I think it was really helpful and really meaningful in a way that like after I finished the game, I was like, man, I just want to go on a walk through the woods and just go out and be in the world. And especially when, you know, things are tough or stressful or you're trying to work through something, that experience can be really meaningful and helpful.
Yeah, I think, that was perfectly said. I think you in the document that we're looking at here at the end of that, you wrote, be curious. And I think that is such a great way of looking at this game. And like the thing that as you're speaking, what came to me was the idea of like ignorance is bliss, but not in the way that we usually take it, because like when you hear ignorance is bliss, I would imagine most people take it as a negative, like we don't know enough and the harm that we might be doing from our ignorance, and that is valid, that is true. But I think in the opposite sense, being ignorant can allow us to be curious and be open and take in new experiences and be present, so we can be on a journey to not be ignorant, to embrace what is around us and enjoy it. And I think that A Short Hike is a great embodiment of that. And it's funny, I wish it makes me a little sad too now I'm thinking about it. It makes me wish that I felt secure, safe enough to have these conversations with people in real life, but and I wish it was like that, you know what I mean? But I think you can still pull good things out of this experience and still apply it to the real world. Whether it's bringing people with you to talk or just being with yourself, because being with ourselves can sometimes be the hardest thing to do. Yeah. So I think when you can embrace that and really sit with that, a lot of good can come from that. So, what a cool game. I love games that just like someone had this really cool idea and I imagine like a company like Ubisoft or EA would hear it and be like, no, there's no way we're financing this game. Yeah. And they made it, and it is just a hit, and everyone loves it, and it's just this beautiful story that it's not about winning or losing, it's about embracing what we are, and and just what a cool experience. Such a cool game.
Such a beautiful game. Yeah.
Yeah. Good pick. Good first pick, Ryan.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Eric. Especially slowing down too in this world. Sorry, I just want to say. Now I'm just thinking about it more. My brain's like running with it. Especially slowing down. It's hard to slow down.
Yeah, and like I think I don't. You know, it's been a little while since I've played the game, but like I think there is certainly something to compartmentalizing and like, you know, allowing yourself to just be in a space and be at peace, and like, you know, instead of worrying about things you can't control, just allow yourself to, you know, enjoy the world around you in a way. And I think like in this game, the character you're playing, we don't know all the details until like the very end, is like really working through something like challenging or stressful or difficult or traumatic, like a difficult experience. And until the very end of the game, we really don't know what that is. And I think the reason why is it doesn't really matter what that thing is. Like what matters is that this person is like, you know, they set a goal of, I'm gonna hike this mountain, and then they did, and then they just like they did it, and it wasn't something that was like, it was incredibly difficult, like there wasn't like really incredible challenges in their way. It was just the fact that they did a thing, and that's all that matters, right? In a really beautiful way.
It's not even about the mountain itself or hiking it. The real conquest is working through the feelings and thoughts the character has until they get to the top. That's like the real challenge of it. When it seems like it's the mountain, but really the mountain is just an ally in the situation of allowing the character to sit with what they're feeling and process it.
And then the healing, I think, at least in the context of the healing really happens like later when you come down from the mountain and have a conversation, that mountain was helping you get the courage to have, when really like the conversation was the mountain that you were climbing was just, you know, like you said, a thing that is helping you process.
But it seems like an adversary is actually an ally in a way. You know what I mean? Not really though in this game, but in a sense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Such a cool game. Love it. Love it. Mm-hmm. I'm realizing, Ryan, of your four games you picked and the morals you have, yours is, like I said, like a sandwich. Like the bread is the kindness, and the middle is the darkness. Mine is the opposite. My bread is vicious. My bread is awful, and the inside's just really nice. So it's definitely opposite vibes, which is kind of fun. We'll go back and forth between the
absolutely
you know
nice
what I mean?
Tonal balance.
Yeah. So the first game I picked was our first game that we covered which was such a special time, was BioShock. I think BioShock is a game, looking back now, having played it years after it had first come out, so I was old enough to really understand it. I think one of the big lessons I've pulled from BioShock is like, we do not have to be what the expectations are of another person putting upon us, right? Mm-hmm. Especially like in the situation with Fontaine having essentially created Jack, right? And for his own ends, and Jack was going to always be his pawn. Jack, realizing the influence Fontaine has on him, right, makes the choice to go against him in an effort to kind of reclaim his independence. And I think that the big thing in this is that we do not have to follow in the footsteps of what someone else perceives that we should go and do. Yeah. And that there's always a choice. Even when it feels like there's not a choice, there always is a choice, truly. Yeah. It's funny because I work with like so many parents who are like, yeah, like my kid knows they have to do this, but they're not doing it. And I don't understand why. And it's like, because like you know, they have that choice, whether you want them to or not, they have that choice. Like it is, I mean, I know it's not what you want for them to do. And granted, if it's bad, I don't want it either, but it's within the bounds. You have to be the source to want them to want to make the good choice, or not to be the source of it, but to be the encourager of it, right? And for Jack, that encouragement, canonically speaking at least, that encouragement to reclaim his independence was not only for himself to escape rapture, but to also take the little sisters and give them a better life, which is what essentially he does. So I think that even if one is having this hard experience, and granted Jackson, like a underwater city full of what's the word I'm thinking of, individuals who are relapsing from a really significant drug problem, he makes the better choice and goes against essentially his creator to reclaim his independence that he never actually had to begin with, which is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you ever connect with that, Ryan, when you first played it, or did you kind of you're just like, I like this game, it was fun, and just not really? Because I think that's how I took it originally.
No, I absolutely. I think when I first played this game, I connected with it on the level of like this subversion of video game genre and trope and expectation of like false choice and false options that we have, like when we're playing a game, we think. Which also, again, there's certainly parallels to the real world, but like we think we're making choices and we think, you know, we're making all these decisions, but really we lived in a structure or a system, or Jack existed in a structure or a system where there really wasn't choices. It was just the illusion of choice. And I think that I think is what I like was most like. I did not understand it in the complex way as I'm explaining now in that moment. But there that subversion of like, what do you mean? Like everything I've been doing has been, I thought I was in control, but I was never in control. Like that. Right. That I think is what I really, really connected with, and I'd never seen anything like it. And then that realization really, like at least for me, and it sounds like for you as well, really drove. I'm like, well, no, now that I know that I never had any choices, I really want to like make some choices and really have some control and autonomy. But I don't think I don't think I ever saw it in how you initially saw it here, but it makes a lot of sense, and I certainly, reflecting back on it, and my own like personal life and expectations, right? There's a lot of this idea of, you know, there's a lot of people in our lives who have expectations of what we should or shouldn't be, and taking control of that, or having some control of that, I think is a really powerful thing. And I think, you know, like you were saying, a lot of times people are making the choices not because they know that's not what they're not supposed to do, because they want to have some control in the world around them and some power in the world around them. And this is a game that like really, in a way that no game before it demanded that you think about that, like demanded that like all of these things that you've done weren't actually your choice. You were following exactly what I wanted to happen, even though you thought you were in control, in a really, really beautiful and interesting way.
I think Ryan, you are on your A game today. You always are, and this is just another day. You are on your A game. That was beautifully put. I think it's so, you're right. Like, man, it's so, there's so many parallels in this radical game about an underwater city and all the and anti-government and Ayn
Yeah,
Rand and all
there's
those
that
things.
whole other layer, right, of the philosophy of the game that we aren't really talking about here, but is a whole nother layer that's speaking on a whole nother level than I certainly didn't understand at the time. But it's really wild, yeah.
But it's just crazy that like when you boil it down to the individual level, there's still that lesson to be pulled out of it that we all want autonomy in the world that we're living in, and how important that is to us, even whether we realize it or not, I think. Yeah. And again, like even the autonomy that I speak for myself, I'm curious how you think, the autonomy that I had as a teenager playing BioShock, not realizing the significance of what that could be because I was just in my mind just a teenager, to where now being an adult looking back, like I've always had autonomy. It's just whether I felt comfortable really using it or I felt like I didn't have in that moment, and kind of understanding the differences between the two and trying to find a way of empowering to utilize it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like having this really beautiful and really complex conversation in a way that I definitely didn't understand at the time, between like the philosophy of the game, right, is about autonomy. Like like this city, no one has any control on what it does, right, in theory. Yeah. And then you as an individual are playing that out that's like at a macro level, and the individual are playing it out at a micro level. And like in that, those are in conversation, right? Like Rapture wanted freedom and full autonomy from everything, and look where it led. And, and now Jack, in theory has freedom and autonomy, but doesn't. And then it like has it's like, I don't have the words or not, or like brain power without like spending a lot of time thinking and talking it through properly more. But there's this like this really beautiful conversation between the philosophy of Rapture and Jack's experience in Rapture, right? Like Jack came to Rapture to find his autonomy, just like the city was founded to be autonomous, and the complexities and difficulties that leads, and that like Jack's autonomy led to a good thing. But Fontaine's autonomy, didn't necessarily lead to a good thing.
Right. And Ryan's too. Andrew Ryan's.
Yeah, exactly.
Not you.
Yeah.
Andrew Ryan.
And mine.
And you, Ryan.
Yeah.
But sorry, we'll move on to the next game in a second. And now, like, this is so interesting. I think what a parallel to, I never realized this till now. Ryan, you said this. You just said that in a great way, of the macro micro differences between the idea of the same theme of autonomy and independence and influence, that when Jack he claims his independence, he claims his autonomy, and chooses to fight against Fontaine. When in that moment, after that fight at the end of the game, in his now true essence of owning his autonomy and his independence, chooses to leave the city that is known for independence and freedom, right? He chooses to leave that, and the almost like the irony in that whole situation. I never, even going through the first time we covered the game, I don't think I ever realized that.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't think I've put the connection together until we started having this conversation. Yeah,
so cool. Even now, after we talk, we gotta go back and there's so many games to talk about. We have to go back and talk about all the games we've done before. There's so many things.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. That was a great conversation. We still have so many more games. So let's.
I know we do. Yeah.
So let's keep going. Ryan, give your.
And this, I think this has like this. This has this like really nice conversation with BioShock. This game, my next game is Shadow of the Colossus, a story about a person who loses somebody that they care about and is willing to do anything, anything to achieve their goal of bringing this person back, no matter what the consequences are. And as you're playing this game, it is constantly putting you in these situations in where you have to like fight these large monsters, these large beasts. And over the course of the game, you're like realizing, or it starts to feel less good. And there's like obviously narrative things that are happening that are making you think, oh, maybe this isn't such a great idea. But because the hero in this story believes it is good and is trying to do an inherently good thing, which is like save somebody they love who is hurt or died or sick or in some way has been killed, but what they're willing to do to get there will harm others in theory, or actively harms these large colossus who are guardians of a larger evil spirit. And I think this was a game where, similar to my connection to BioShock, like it really flipped on this head this idea of, in most, the trope in narrative is that the hero is out to do good and they're out to make the world a better place, and there are antagonists, but those antagonists are bad and evil and trying to make the world a worse place. And there's this really fun flipping of this game where you are doing something that is, good, right? You are trying to save somebody you love, but in doing so you're going to harm other people. And there's this point of, even if you're maybe not fully aware, but there's like some hints there, and this this person is willing to go as far as, they have to save this person that they love, even when we as a player, through context clues and through scenes that we've seen and through this like really, foreshadowing of evilness, become aware that like, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe, but you as a player don't necessarily get to make that choice. You have, like, I think maybe there is a moment. It's been a very long time since I played this game. Maybe there's a moment you get to make some choice, but I don't necessarily think so. I don't think so. I don't think there's any choice in what happens in the end.
Yeah.
But I think what I think really connected about this is this idea that of this, you as the hero are doing something that you believe is good, but you are the villain in this world by the end of the game, in this way that is, at the time I'd never played anything like it, and it really, and we talk about this all the time, really helped click into place that there's not this like good guy, bad guy world that exists. It is this like people who are making decisions that they think is for the best, and that they are trying to, in some way, do what they believe is best, even though it is likely, and in many cases, will cause harm to others. And it's just a more complex conversation, and I think opens up this idea of grayness and complexity of character in a way that I hadn't seen in another game previously, and is in conversation with BioShock in that like there are consequences to actions, and those consequences will impact others.
Yeah, I think it really parallels. I think I have the thing. I feel the same way about the lesson from this story as well. I think the line between hero and villain is very thin, right? They're just two sides of the same coin. What one hero thinks that they're doing is right for the world is what another person sees in them as the villain, right? And I think this is like a perfect example, like you're saying, whereas you essentially are the villain, that even through good actions you are causing harm upon others. Every choice has a consequence, but it's not one or the other. The consequences on both sides. There's a positive consequences and negative ones. I think that's the interesting thing about the word like consequence. I feel like is like we all have when we hear the word consequence, it's like inherently negative, but there are positive consequences. There are like things that happen from your actions that can be positive. And yes, like the protagonist has these like altruistic goals to like be heroic and climb these giant colossi and stab them over and over to bring back the one he loves, which is like in another perspective very romantic, very heroic, very courageous.
Armor.
Yes, but in turn is causing significant harm to everyone around him and what it is doing to the world. And I think like a lot of times, like at least in my job, when we're talking about the idea of like selfishness, being selfish, in my opinion, and I think clinically speaking, is not a negative thing, because we need things to survive. We need things to be happy, and that in itself is selfish, but not in a negative sense. However, too much of anything is a negative. Drinking too much water is a negative. Eating too much food is a negative. For the main character, going so far as to kill these giants to bring back someone who's dead at the negative impact of everyone else around him, right, is too much selfishness, right? Yeah. And it's too much. And that would be like a classic, like, I can't get over this. And rather than sit with the feelings of losing this person, I would rather go against that.
Yeah.
But then, of course, lose everything in the process to do so.
Yeah.
Again, I love the irony in these. I'm starting to see this more and more, the irony in the lessons of these things. Mm-hmm. You set out and do this thing, but it's always the opposite outcome that you're kind of looking for in the idea of what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Except for a short hike. That's a beautiful story. It's just
yeah.
You know, the mountain doesn't, do anything bad or anything.
Right.
With like Jack being controlled, going down into BioShock, into Rapture, and having his autonomy kind of being given to him by the end, Or Shadow of the Colossus, so it's going to revive your loved one, but you are causing chaos and then ending up losing your life, essentially. Or kind of, in a way.
Kind of. Yeah.
Loosely.
Yeah.
I think that it really does play upon the idea of what will the consequence be of my actions. And sometimes you'll know it. Sometimes it's obvious as to what your actions are doing in the world and those around you. And other times it doesn't. And it kind of goes again. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. It goes again into the idea of ignorance is bliss, but this time in the negative sense, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
The main character, whether he realized it or not sure if he did or not. I'm sure there's probably some evidence to prove this in front of him, though he could have been, again, ignorant to a fault. It's like, his ignorance towards his actions caused a significant shift moving forward, that if Aiko really is connected to that game, right, has now impacted those people in that story as well. His action to kill these colossi.
Yeah.
Don't kill colossi. That's just the good moral. They're nice. Yeah. They're nice.
Yeah.
I feel, I don't know. I want to play that game again so bad.
Yeah.
I want to play Shadow so bad, but I just feel, knowing now, I just feel bad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I never like being in water in a video game. It makes me feel so uncomfortable. Like sometimes they grab my character and pull me under. It's the eel from Mario 64 that caused this to happen. I hate that eel so much. I hate it. But I remember in Shadow of the Colossus sitting in the water and waiting for the kind of like the river snake one coming through, and it never hurts you. And I remember just feeling so uncomfortable until I realized, oh my god, I'm the one that's causing the pain. You know what I mean? Like this colossus is not going to hurt me. I'm the one that's hurting it. Yeah. And the kind of weird thing that did in my brain in that moment. You know what I mean? Like I'm the terror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am going into this creature. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I felt like, attack me so I could attack you back. You know what I mean?
Give me a reason, please.
Give me a reason, yeah.
Help me justify this action.
Hurt me so I can hurt you, right? Which I think a lot of people, that's a negative behavior some people have in this world, unfortunately, right?
It sure is. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Games are so great. Right?
Games are great. Yeah,
games are cool.
They sure are.
Games are so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, great pick, Ryan. Good pick.
Thanks.
I remember editing that episode in a car ride as I'd driven somewhere with my wife, and she was editing, and we were just listening to the story together. And she's like, "This sounds like a really cool game." I was like, "It is. We should play it." And she's like, "No, I don't think I want to play it, but I like listening to it." I was like, "Okay, that's cool."
Yeah.
Good game.
Good game.
My next one.
Yeah.
Wow, we've done 3 and it's almost an hour. Okay. Yeah.
It's fine.
We're doing great. So my next one. Oh, I'm going to take a quick second, Ryan. I want to apologize to you. You were talking and I really was listening. The inspector was late. I realized that he had texted the wrong number. He texted someone with the 607 area code, not a 570 like Lindsay's is. So this other person's getting all these messages. And so then she didn't realize that he's going to be late. So then I'm texting her. So I apologize. I was not trying to look. I was like, okay. I figured you wouldn't take it that way, but I also wanted to make sure you
yeah, I appreciate it, but you're fine, of course.
Okay. Yeah, so my next game is Borderlands. And I think what's so great about Borderlands, there's not many life lessons to pull from Borderlands because that's not the point. But I think the biggest takeaway, though, is to not take life seriously. I think that's a lesson that is so important. I think a lot of us lose sight on sometimes because the world is inherently this. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of different feelings, and I'm sure you're valid in those feelings, right? Inherently. So, but I think as for someone like me, I kind of see the world as, I think the world is basically a negative place, which is why the positive impacts of other people are so good, because then they shine through, right? That's kind of my philosophy on life. And I think that Borderlands is kind of an inherent extension of that belief for me personally, in that, like, even when things are hard, even when you have to do these really tough things, cracking a joke can help kind of bring the stress down even 1% to make it a little bit more manageable. Yeah. And I think Borderlands does a great job of showcasing that even when you're fighting a boss or you're having to do these things, you know, someone cracks a joke and it can make you laugh, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like, you know, this sucks, but at least it doesn't suck as much as it could if I didn't just laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's so much, like, I think like you're saying, like, morally and narratively, there's some really, like, interesting things going on in Borderlands, but I think overall it's just understanding that, like, this world is, like, a very grim and terrible and awful place that no one should ever have to live in. But what shines through across, every one of those games, some more successfully than others, is this like humor of like you're saying, not taking it seriously and just like allowing yourself to, find some amount of happiness in a very dark and grim world where, you're likely to die at any given moment for any given reason, because this world is designed to kill you. You kind of have to find something, some happiness or as a human, some way to feel something happy and good.
Yeah. I think it's being conscious. Yeah. Why is the word so hard to me all of a sudden? Is that conscious? Like present, being present.
Yeah.
Jeez, like sometimes English is a bad language. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. English is a bad language. It is hard.
Yeah.
Consonants. Being conscious. I can't say this word. We're gonna edit this, or I'll put it in and feel stupid and laugh at it later. Being present with understanding that, okay, I'm stressed. I should do something to help alleviate that stress, and whether it's making a joke or doing some other coping that you can do, it's really important to do that and be mindful, not just put your head down and keep pushing through, because eventually you'll wear out. It's taking that second, taking that breath, making that joke that might help carry you through even longer to what you're trying to do. I think Borderlands is the kind of the epitome of that idea of what that looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. Good game.
Great game. So fun.
I'm excited to play it again after we play pre-sequel.
Yeah, same. Okay. My next one is The Last of Us. I'm just going to really talk about the first one. I won't get into anything with the second one. We haven't covered it. And there's like actively the narrative is coming out now for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So don't want to spoil anything there. But at least the original game is this really and it, right from the get-go is this like really complicated and feels really human. I think that's one of the things I enjoy so much about this game is how human a lot of the decisions and the choices and the things that happen feel. Yeah. There's obviously this like supernatural element of these like mushroom zombies that is like the setting in which this world is taking place, but like the actual interesting stuff that happens is all about the choices that people make, and especially at the very end of that game when you find out that like when Joel lies to Ellie about what happens and the thing that he did in like murdering an entire hospital of people. This character who you've spent this whole time like playing as, rooting for, think is like, has done shady stuff in the past, but like, characters sometimes, or anti-heroes sometimes have to do bad things for the greater good, right? And then you have this like this choice that he makes that is not for the greater good, that is fully a selfish, all to be argued, but as far as Joel is concerned, as far as Joel knew, like there could be a cure, but I would have to lose Ellie, right? And Joel was not willing to make that choice of allowing Ellie to be killed for anything. This selfish choice, right, to preserve a person that they care about, who they've kind of shifted this failing in their past to their own daughter, to Ellie, of like not being able to then lose Ellie. This choice, this person who we played as for the whole game, saw this as like a gruff but good person who wanted to do what was right and is trying to protect people, and this world is messy and trying to do good thing, does this like inherently selfish thing, and then on top of that lies when a person asks them point blank, like, what happened, what I was ready to die for this cause, why aren't I dead? And him to just lie about that adds this extra layer of humanity and selfishness on, I'm going to make a choice, but then I'm not going to face the consequences of that choice with this person who I'm in charge of taking care of and, helping work their way through the world. And that the choice was bad enough, but then on top of that, not being able to, own that choice and because you don't want to deal with the difficult consequences, and you want to lie to this person who, trusts you, or did trust you and really bonded, and you were like the first person that they ever did trust, like is a really messy and hairy but also really human situation. Yes. Like the complexities of that, of making a choice that is so selfish because you care so much about somebody and you think what's best for somebody, is like a really human choice. And like but also a really terrible one. And we, eventually we'll see the consequences in future games, but in a way that is, you don't really see you don't see in storytelling, at least in a video game medium. And it hits even harder because you'd played through this relationship. You built this relationship with Ellie as Joel. Like, you played through this experience. You argued with her. You had these really difficult conversations and said you weren't her daughter. And like this really, like, there's this emotional battling and Ellie pushing people away because she doesn't want to get close to them, right? This, like, again, these really human experiences that ultimately, Joel made this choice. And I think what I took away from this whole experience is that, like, the world is messy and complicated. People are messy and complicated. People who are really good people can do really terrible things.
Yep.
People who are really bad people can actually really help and create communities and support people, but like also maybe really gross and terrible, right? Like both of these things can exist because people are messy and complicated and, aren't always good at, being people who think about others, especially in a situation when the structures of society, which, push us towards the direction of helping each other, at least in theory, like, fully collapse.
Yeah.
It makes it even messier and more difficult. But I think, like, these choices that are made in this game could happen even if it wasn't an apocalypse, and it would still be real, and I'm sure does happen every single day. But just this extra layer adds a tension and a severity to it that is really beautiful and intense. And I think, like all the other games you've talked about and I've talked about, like, it was this really big shift in a narrative and in a story that I hadn't seen before, and in the complexity hit at a time where I was, like, able to process and understand that complexity in a really beautiful way. And again, just showed this humanity in a medium that for, the majority of its existence didn't have that complexity to it.
Yeah. Yep. I think people being messy is kind of you put it in a great way there. And I think, like, even kind of piggybacking off that idea, I think it kind of shows that everyone is different shades of gray, of light and dark mixed together. Some's a little bit darker, some's a little bit lighter, but both within everyone coexist, right? And it's kind of understanding how much of both sides are you, and are you okay with that? And I think for Joel, it was a means to an end for him in justifying what he did for himself. But also, another lesson I pull from this game is hurt people hurt people. And that is what the world of The Last of Us is. Everyone's hurt. Absolutely. Yeah. And no one's able to really just be. And so they will continue to hurt. And, it's interesting to see where that goes later on. But I think that being the biggest thing, and also, like, I think, I'll save it. We'll save it for when we cover The Last of Us Part 2, which I think could help maybe happen soon. Yeah. I think that would be a big thing to kind of go over into as well, because I think hurt people, and people are messy really plays a huge role in that narrative as well. So
absolutely.
It's very, I think it is, for a game that is about spores infesting people or infecting. English is hard. English sucks. Yeah. English is bad language. Or I'm just bad at it. Both. It is very human, very real. Yeah. And how, and honestly, there's so many, now I'm thinking all the things I'm learning, and how the desires of one can be the fault of all. Really, Joel and the Wanderer from Shadow of the Colossus are kind of two peas in a pod.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think, like, it goes back to those consequences, right? Like, Joel, he made a choice, and that choice led to a bunch of stuff that there's no world in which he could predict. Yeah. And, like, it just gets really complicated and messy, and really goes back to, like, the choices that we make. Things are going to happen beyond what we will ever see and what we'll ever understand, and, like, you have to kind of live with that. And so making choices as best you can, knowing that things are going to happen, that choices you made are going to lead to people getting hurt, because that's just the world we live in. That's the world. Yeah.
It's sad but cruel, but true. But it doesn't have to be. But we also are maladaptive to a fault at times.
Yes.
It's hard. Yeah,
Absolutely.
my next game I'm going to cover is Firewatch, and the lesson I kind of set with and pull from that game is how taking space away from life, taking space away from what is going on to readjust and maybe even begin anew is a really powerful tool that I think has a negative perception based on kind of past ideals. The idea of taking space is kind of could be perceived as running away, and I don't feel those two things. I don't feel like that second perspective of running away. I think it takes away from the validity and the power of just taking space for yourself and readjusting. Again, Firewatch and A Short Hike, very similar in the kind of lessons we're talking about here, in that. And granted, the main character Henry isn't necessarily alone. He does have Delilah, who is, a ways away in her own fire tower.
Yeah,
tower.
Firewatch Tower.
Yeah. Okay. And though you never see her, you do talk to her, but she's kind of your only person that you're kind of processing these feelings with. And so, but Henry never would have met Delilah if he had never gotten this job, and he never really would have processed all these feelings if he had not gotten to be in that position to do so and just kind of be present with himself and really force to sit with himself. And I think a lot of times that we as people inherently, when we feel uncomfortable, when we feel any kind of like negative way, we try to get away from that feeling as much as possible, right? We try to cope through it, whether that's positive or negative ways of doing so. When at times, when you just sit with that uneasiness, when you sit with that discomfort, more clarity can come through and help you kind of understand what you're sitting with and really process that, rather than just cope through it and hope that it goes away, which it never truly does until you face it. And I think for Henry, that's what he essentially does, right? He takes that space, but he sits with just himself at times, with the discomfort of what has gone on in his life, and trying to figure out what he does there. And I think until that end moment where the force is fired and he has to leave, right? He has that moment where he's like, I have to do something new. And that's when he leaves. And I wish we knew what happened to Henry, but I'm also happy we don't, because I think that's what kind of is the beauty of that game, is that after Henry leaves, having experienced so much, it's, now he can start again after the loss of his wife and all the things that had happened. So,
I think it's such a beautiful game, and I think connecting. I wouldn't have made this connection until you said it, but that parallel with Short Hike, I think, makes a lot of sense, especially where you pointed out. I had it on my doc, but didn't say it, but that be curious, like that curiosity of like the world around you, but also to be curious about like, okay, why am I feeling this discomfort? Why am I feeling this way that I'm feeling? And that curiosity helping you kind of work through that experience. And I think there's a world in which you could see, Henry's life as like going to this Firewatch Tower, like you said, as like he's a failure running away from something that happened to him. He's not like he's hiding from something but like, again, he's finding the space where he can process and cope. And I think, that for some people can look like a bad choice, and can certainly look like they're doing something that doesn't make sense, or that you may not understand. And I would encourage like a curiosity on both sides, right? Like,
right.
Why is that important for Henry? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
The world, people in the world. But yeah, such a beautiful way to tell that story, and again, to tell a really human story in a way that is like hidden in this world of like, oh, maybe there's something supernatural going on, but really like what the story is like a really grounded, real story of like, what good can come from trying to have some escapism and trying to go find your own, story in the world. What good and processing can come from that? Because there's like everything, both sides to that.
Yeah. I mean, really, I would really say that Firewatch and A Short Hike are essentially why we as people who like video games, or really any form of media, choose to utilize those methods to disassociate from reality for a little bit, and that helps us to process or learn lessons from these mediums that helps us to grow as a person. And I think, kind of piggybacking off what you said too, Ryan, is like it's all well and good to cope positively, right? We don't want to make negative we don't want to do negative coping because that's not going to get us where we need to go. It's good to cope, but the coping needs to come after the understanding of where those feelings and where those thoughts are coming from, right? If we're coping to dissociate, or we're coping to shield ourselves from what we're feeling or what we're thinking, then nothing is being done, no work is being done to improve upon ourselves. We're just avoiding at that point. So when you can kind of understand, where for Henry, he understands, I think. I mean, he doesn't verbally say this. This is kind of my perception that I'm putting onto it, so I could be wrong. I think he understands where all these things are coming from, especially from his talks with Delilah throughout the story narrative. But it's when he learns to kind of embrace the change and move forward and cope with these things that he can kind of like start again. Yeah. Man, story narrative, so good.
So great.
Ryan, you're on your last one.
I'm on my last one, and this one's a little bit lighter and sillier, but I really love this game and these games and how it explores narrative and story in a really strange and weird way. My last game is Portal, the original Portal. We've covered parts of Portal 2, but I wouldn't want to dive too deeply into that without finishing that story conversation. So I'm just going to focus on Portal, and I think the things. Portal 2 expands on a lot of these ideas, but I think Portal still does a great job of putting you in again, when you're booting up into Portal, like all of these experiences, when we are booting up into a game, we understand as a player and as a person experiencing that there's a structure and a set of rules in which we have to follow. Like you have health, and if it gets to 0, there's gonna be a consequence of that. There's all these rules in these games and in all of these things, in all of these experiences that we are talking about here. There is a separate rule set and structure that is being imposed by the developer, usually with the goal of making it more fun or more interesting. And I would say in the cases of all the games we talked about successfully. Short Hike and Firewatch are probably the loosest on this because there are far fewer rules. I think matching up with that narrative of what the purpose of the story you're trying to tell is. I'm saying all of this because Portal itself is a game where you're very early on in a really, I think, really successful way taught there are rules to this world. There's ways you solve these puzzles, and there is a way that you get through this experience. And if as the player you just follow those rules and do everything the game tells you, you die at the end of Portal. You're dropped into a fiery pit and die. Your success and moving on to finishing that story comes from breaking that game, from using the tools the game has taught you, which is how to use the portal gun, to escape this dangerous situation and get yourself out. And this happens again and again as well in Portal 2. But this idea of there's a structure of this game and of how you get through this experience, and only by taking everything the game has taught you and applying it in new and weird and interesting ways that the game never tells you, but it's all laid out in front of you, you're able to be more successful and move past that. And I think that's the thing that, especially in games that have come since, but even just in the world, take the lessons that the game is teaching you, but don't be constrained by only the things the game is teaching you, right? Apply those things to everything else. And I think subverting that in Portal by again killing you if you follow the directions of the game, is such a great way to teach that lesson, and a really cool way to teach that lesson, especially as it is laying the groundwork of all throughout the game that the narrator who's telling you what to do is not a reliable narrator. It's not somebody who is looking out for your best interests and your wellness and safety. And I think those combination of things is a really important lesson for folks to learn and to understand, and for me to learn and understand and internalize is people who help you and are trying to teach you how things work aren't always looking out for what's best for you specifically, and the things they teach you can apply to anything. You don't have to, it doesn't only have to fit in the way they're forcing it to fit. And I think it does this in a 2-hour game that has beautiful writing and in just a really exciting way that I think it's such a great way to teach that lesson, and a lesson that I think is really fun, and a lot of games since have also subverted this in a way that is fun. I've realized that like a good chunk of my games that I've chosen are all games that like subvert tropes in a way that is that I really enjoy. But yeah, I think that lesson is really good and fun and important. And I think, you can take Portal at face value as just a puzzle game that has a really good, voice acting and writing, but there's also this larger idea of, use the lessons the game teaches you to break the game is a really fun way to it's a fun thing to take away from it.
You heard it first, storygoers. Ryan likes anarchy. He's an anarchist. It comes
true.
Out.
It's true.
But I think it's a good lesson for me too, because I think you're right in everything you said. And as someone who self-identifies as the most gullible person in the world, it's good to be mindful of actions speak louder than words, right? And what we see with GLaDOS, she has she can say the nicest things at times, but then the actions behind her words, or the actions that come after what she says, doesn't really connect with what
lies to.
They don't
over
connect.
And over again.
Over again.
Yeah.
No, the cake was not a lie, but still, that was like actually a truth. But I think that's really, really important lesson, because if we're always going to assume the best, right? Or expect, I should say. We're always supposed to expect the best, or if we're always going to expect the worst, that's all we'll ever see. And I think expectation is truly, there's a saying, I think it kind of goes with this: expectation is the killer of happiness. But I think even more so, it's like, I think expectation just kind of ruins the reality that which you're looking upon, right? When if you're just open-minded to what could be and kind of assessing both sides of things, helps you have a fuller perspective. So for Shell, like, she kind of sees, I kind of more me putting it on her more than the game saying it, but she sees the fallacies in what GLaDOS is saying and doing, and makes like you're saying, makes the choice to break the rules of the game to better herself, as she should, as someone with autonomy should do that to preserve themselves. So.
And I think like there's also like there's like listen to who GLaDOS like take GLaDOS at face value. If you assume GLaDOS is like looking out for what's best for you, or assume like as soon as something is contradictory to that, like take that information in and allow that to change your perspective on that character and the world you're existing in. Like, if it would be a very different game if GLaDOS at no point had like lied to you or put you in dangerous situations or like made fun of you and then tried to kill you then did something, you know what I mean? Like, that's that feels unfair. That feels like, I trusted you, you didn't get, but GLaDOS multiple times shows you that they are not somebody who is worthy of your trust and respect, and you just need to listen to that and then adjust, how you interact, how you move through that world.
Yeah, because if you allow that, right, if you just follow through on the way she talks to Shell, and you just don't, you are inherently kind enough to just allow that to occur and continue to make choices that this negative person approves of, then that's more upon you than it is them, in a sense, right? Because you're allowing that situation to occur, which isn't fair towards you, but it has to, the person has to recognize that for it to be valid. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting. I think, again, another great example of how a short game with very minimal, I mean, I say this, I've never made a game, so I could be very wrong here, but kind of minimal assets, right? Really one voice actor the whole time, maybe two, technically, with the turret, and but like, and can make such a beautiful narrative and compelling story and gameplay that isn't have to be an $80 game that is, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
100 hours long. Not say those are bad necessarily, but it's just like, it's nice when we have that, the option of these kind of smaller narratives that are just, I don't know, equally as good in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. We're on our last game.
Yeah, Eric, your last game. What a doozy.
What a doozy. I did this one more for fun. It's just obvious. I picked Outlast with kind of the moral I wrote, the lesson I learned is don't do anything to be famous, right? Like, not like don't do anything, but don't lower yourself to do anything to get the opportunity to be famous or to break the next big story. Also, valid, in my opinion, lesson, don't go into abandoned psychiatric hospitals. Like, why? would you do that? It's so stupid. I never look. I feel like I can judge this person based on their accent. Miles Upser is the main character. I can totally judge him because like literally he has to jump through an open window and climb a bunch of rocks and jump through an open window to get inside this place, which is one, breaking the law.
Yeah,
we don't like that. Not cool, dude. Not cool. But like, but for what? And of course, like as we know, if you listen to our amazing episode, fantastic voice acting, screaming, growling, all the things. We know like he loses everything by the end. He's completely taken over by oh crap, I should remember the name of this. The thingy, the ghost thing. What's the thing? You remember that thing, Ryan?
No, I can't.
Oh man, it's like right on the tip of my tongue. It's gonna dry.
It's like some noun, right? Or some
oh man, people are like screaming at me right now. The thing, the wall rider. Never would have gotten that. Never would have gotten that. But you know, by the end of the story, Miles is taken over by the wall rider completely and just loses himself in what was just him trying to be a journalist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, covering the local parade in your town is probably not the most exciting story, but also it's still a valid thing to do. And if it's not giving you what you're looking for, and you're considering breaking the law and going in and just entering into a abandoned psychiatric hospital, maybe get a new job that's validating. Like I don't know, like maybe that's just me. I think that's the lesson I take from it. It's like if you're not getting what you want to out of your experience, and you're thinking of going to these extremes to seek that validation or to seek whatever it is you're trying to find, maybe that's a sign to not do any of that and try to just find something that's like more sustainable and approachable. I really don't feel, I mean, I feel for Miles during the story, but also I don't, because he's kind of his own worst enemy in the sense that he puts himself in these situations and then pays the consequences. Again, the consequences of this, which now in his selfishness to break a story on what this company is doing in the psychiatric hospital, which is a valid thing, I guess, to try to expose, he loses everything in unleashing this entity upon the world. So, I mean, again, for what, just to break a story, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. And then, of course, the story gets broken later on anyway by someone else totally different. So, like, so it doesn't, you know, like, I don't know. It's I think it's a good lesson in, like, you know, vanity or a pursuit of one's own means can be your own detriment or your own demise in what happens with that. So if you're not a Nepo baby, then good luck in this day and age. You know what I'm saying? Good luck.
Yeah. Everyone else is like, we're all out here struggling. If we're not,
we're all out here struggling. Every Nepo. Oh my God. Seriously though, Ryan, we are the Miles Upser of podcasts, because we have every Nepo baby and it has a podcast, and every YouTuber has a podcast. And we are
so you're saying we need to go start breaking into abandoned psychiatric hospitals is what you're saying. to really bring this podcast to the next level.
I watched my wife and I watched these YouTubers. I think they're called the Proper People.
Yep.
And they'll go to abandoned sites and they'll walk around. And I'm just like, how? Maybe it's just me. I've just played too many things that scream, don't do that. You know what I mean? And granted, nothing's ever happened to these people. Also, they just go in. Sorry, this is totally off topic. This is another lesson. Don't go in abandoned buildings and not wear any kind of gas or air purifier on your face. They go in the deepest parts of the world sometimes and just are just breathing in mold
taking
and
it all
just
in.
disgusting things. Like they cannot be breathing well. There's no way in my mind. I don't know. But anyway, so I don't know where this went. Don't go in psychiatric hospitals unless you're supposed to.
Have some self-preservation.
Yes. Get a new job. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. You know, get a podcast. Everyone else has it. We do. You never know.
Yeah.
Write a book, whatever. You know. So I mean, just don't do it. Just if something seems grandiose enough that could get you hurt, maybe question if this is the right path for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the best. I think you did the thing that I could get most of that you said is the piece of like, if you're seeking validation in a way that is going to bring you harm, then maybe you need to find a new way to like reflect on why that feels like the right choice and make a different one. Yeah.
Right. Which is why Ryan and I are announcing our new podcast, Tales from the Psychiatric Hospital. We're going to go to abandoned psychiatric hospitals, and we're going to expose what occurred there.
Yeah.
First
and also talk about
soon.
video games while we do it. Still.
Short hike.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just the nicest game. Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Ryan, okay. If I asked you a question, can you, if you feel comfortable enough, can you try to be as honest as possible?
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Okay. If you and I went into... if we went into an abandoned psychiatric hospital, what seemingly is abandoned, right? And of course, there's horrific things going on, like an Outlast situation. You and I go in there. Yeah. I have no doubt. I don't think either of us would sacrifice the other to live. We are loving to a fault where I feel like you and I would probably both die at the same time trying to save the other person.
Absolutely,
probably.
For sure.
I for sure see that. But who do you think would last longer? Who would
think would last longer? I think you would last longer.
Do you really think so? I think I think you would.
The reason I think you would last longer is I think you are just like, you got the height, right? That's
Scrappy.
Always going to be a benefit.
Is it though? If I'm trying to hide, my butt's just sitting out.
Like if we're running around and still, I think you are better. You have better. What's the best way to phrase this? You have better, like, body awareness control abilities. Like, I think you are better suited to, in a chase, I think you are better suited to survive than I am.
I don't know. I think you're smarter than me, so I think you would do a good job hiding in places, and I think I just wouldn't be able to fit. You know what I mean? I'd be like trying to be like a coat rack. Sure. I would just get torn apart.
Yeah.
And then in my own fault, I would look to you in your hiding spot, and I'd be like, Ryan, and I'd just totally give away where you are.
Yeah. Sure.
But you would probably never hold it against me, and I appreciate that very much.
Just try to survive. Just try to
survive.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out in our new podcast what happens. I don't know how we're going to edit it when one of us goes, but we'll see.
Lindsay will probably edit it before.
Yeah, she'll do it. Yeah. It'll be fine. She's just weeping at the horrible... Listening to her husband get ripped apart, trying to be a coat hanger because he couldn't hide somewhere because he's not smart enough to find a spot.
Hello Kitty's Island Adventure.
Yeah. Cracking jokes, trying to make the bad guys laugh, but it's just not working, and he's just getting frustrated.
Yeah.
But storygoers, what do you think about these lessons? Did we get them right? Do we get them horribly wrong? Is A Short Hike really about the dangers of the world and how horrible the world is? Is BioShock about how great independence and non-government is Portal about cake? What do you think? Let us know. Tales from the Cartridge @gmail.com. Also write in on, you can also comment on our episode if you're listening to us on Spotify. There'll be a poll. I don't know what the poll will be yet. We'll think of what it is later. It always comes in a moment. And then, is there any games that we have covered or haven't covered that has a great story or narrative that you feel like was a positive lesson that you learned? Whether it's a thing to do or not to do, let us know, right? Maybe it's something we can cover in a future episode in a story that we haven't done yet. And speaking of, not to go too far into it, but we are trying to restructure Tales a little bit. We're making some changes that are more viable, and I feel like we say this a lot and then it doesn't work, but I think this is the real change we kind of needed to do to make this more suitable to our lifestyle and making more episodes and engaging more. We're not going to say yet what it is, but just be aware that there will be some changes coming to Tales in terms of the larger narrative stories that we do. The bedtime stories, campfire stories should stay the same, as well as our DLC episodes. But we'll see. We'll have more to share soon as we're figuring it out. We have the basis of it, and now we're just kind of making sure it's going to work. So
yeah.
But Ryan, thanks for joining me for another great episode today.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Love these stories.
Yeah.
I want to play all these games again now. But I'm a part of this. I don't know if you know, I'm a part of this expedition right now. It's kind of a big deal.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. You're really important. They need you.
We're going to kill a painter. I don't know. It's kind of bad. We talk about consequences. I feel like this is pretty messed up. Yeah. No one explains why to me. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I'd be the first one. When you play the game, we have a lot to talk about because I totally know how if I went on this expedition, how I would go, how I would do. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, storygoers, we hope you're happy, healthy, doing well, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye. If you're not a nepo baby, then good luck in this day and age. You know what I'm saying?